Welcome to another episode of The Unexpected Detour, where in life detours are inevitable. I am your host, Frances Hammond, and I have something to talk about. I always got something to talk about. That's nothing new. However, has anybody ever listened to the sound of their voice? That's what I want to know. I never paid attention to the sound of my voice. Never, ever, ever. I didn't, and then when I did hear my voice, I didn't even like the way I sound. I did not like it. I don't know what it was. I remember when I had a phone, and you had that answering machine. The answering machine came with a little tape, and my son was like, "Ma, you used to do that over and over again, record it over and over again." Yeah, I was trying to get perfection because I was told my voice was too sexy. So I think that's what it was. I didn't like the sound of my own voice. And to be honest with you, I never go back and listen to my own voice. I just leave it be. I never listen to the word. I know the words I'm saying, but I won't go back and listen because I just don't like the sound of my voice. But anyway, to jump right into it, I say all this because back in the day, I used to want to be a radio host. If you're from New York and you grew up when there was a radio station called WBLS, there were two radio hosts on it. They were females, Vi Higginson and Lamar Renee. I took such pride in listening to them. And I said, you know what? When I graduate from high school, that's what I wanted to do. Moving right along, it didn't happen. Never happened. Life went on. That passed me by. And then I had a son. I used to read him stories. He seemed to enjoy it. He seemed to enjoy the sound of my voice. But me, I didn't hear what it sounded like. And then one day he reminded me, he was like, "Ma, remember you used to record your voice over and over again because you had an answering machine. Back in the day, we had these answering machines, and you put your recording on the answering machine. And I would do mine over and over again, all because I wanted to have music with mine. I had to be different. And then I got a little fed up when a man kept calling in. He was like, "Wow, you got a sexy voice. I only called to hear that." And then my sister was like, "Who are you trying to pick up?" I don't know if I should have taken that as a compliment or as an insult. Wasn't too sure. So moving along to 2017, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. Clear as day. In June, found out in August. And I wanted to get the word out. And it wasn't to get the word out about me. It was to get the word out about how being a 60-year-old woman, you go for a mammogram for 20 years and you still come up short because you've been diagnosed with breast cancer. And that's what I was doing. So I didn't say anything. I would just write it. I constantly would write about it. And one day I came across a young lady. She would do podcasts about her journey with alopecia. She's a friend of mine. So I was like, "Do you think I can do that?" And she was like, "Sure, try it." Me being shy and bashful, although you couldn't see me, I was very reluctant to do it because I didn't want anybody to hear my voice. And then one day I said, I'm going to step out in faith and I'm going to do this thing and see just what it is. So I downloaded the app, I got on there, Anchor, and I started doing a podcast. And the podcast was to get my story out, but I wanted you to hear my voice. I wanted you to hear the story because when people tell their own story, they put all their all into telling a story about themselves. And that was what I wanted to do. So I did the first one. It was okay. And I kept going and going and going and going. And nobody ever seemed to listen. I was really, really disheartened because I said, Here I am. I'm putting all and all into it, but nobody listening. You know, I didn't want to make money off of it. I just wanted to share my journey with breast cancer to let other women know that it can happen to them. So recently, I had a conversation with my son. And every time I see him, it's when we have our little car rides and we have our discussions, I'm like, oh, I gotta go home and do this podcast. And it never gets done. I procrastinate. Why? I have a lot to talk about, but I never do it. But this time, he said to me, he was like, Ma, I am so proud of you. I am proud of you that you do these podcasts. And he was like, you know why? Because this is your legacy that you're leaving for me. And if I have children and you're not here, they can hear the sound of your voice. I never thought about that. I never thought about leaving a recording behind is a legacy. I never thought about it because I never wanted to hear me talk. But to him, he was like, Ma, you got a radio voice. And I'm like, what's a radio voice? I mean, I've been told that, I have a voice where I can be on radio, but hey, I can be on the radio, but I don't want to see people. That was just it. Took me a while to get into the habit of getting on here, talking, nobody looking at me. Sometimes I would write down what I wanted to say. And then my son was like, Ma, don't write anything down. Talk from your heart. When you talk from your heart, it's more sincere from what you're saying because there is no script. You're not reading anything. He was like, you could tell when somebody is reading something. I was like, yeah, I'm sure you can. I guess I was trying to be like the news reporters, you know, but he enjoyed listening. I was really surprised. He enjoyed, a few people enjoyed, you know, but then I got disheartened because I was like, what am I doing on my podcast that it's not making any money or anything? And then I remembered I didn't do it for money. I did it for healing for me and because I enjoy it. And when you do things you enjoy, I guess you don't look for a monetary income. You do it because it's something you enjoy. And I would always tell people, when it's time for me to make money from it, then it will come. That's it. But doing these podcasts, I mean, it is fun. And recently, another situation happened when I was on my podcast called The Resilience of Black Women Confronting Breast Cancer. And one of the ladies on it, she was very happy to be on this podcast because she wanted to leave a legacy for her children. That touched me. She wanted to be able to see if anything happened to her, her children could still see her. They have this to go back to. They could see her. They could hear her. And that made me feel good. Just knowing that what I'm doing is a legacy for some. For some, they just enjoy watching it and they just enjoy listening to it. And I decided, since I never did the beginning without a video, I wanted to go back to the very beginning and do this one for that reason. Because when I started, you never saw my face. You just heard my voice. And if my voice sounds sexy or whatever, that is me. But I would appreciate if you all who are listening would follow my podcast, The Unexpected Detour, which is available across multiple streaming platforms. And if you really want to see, check out YouTube. Same title, Unexpected Detour. Follow and subscribe, and don't forget to share. Share because some of these stories that you'll hear in the beginning about breast cancer, they might touch somebody else. I mean, I could tell you a million stories of cancer that I went through. But when I get together with my ladies and they talk about theirs, it's very interesting. It's interesting for me because my diagnosis was different. So I thank you for taking up your time just to listen to me talk about what I had to say. And if you never thought about leaving a legacy that means something to your children, your voice is the best one. I mean, I wish I could hear my mother's voice. She's been dead this year, will be 25 years. And the voice I imagine is not the voice. And I'll tell you this story and then I'm going to end it. My son found some recordings from my mother, his grandmother, and they were cassette tapes. So he was like, Mom, I'm going to find a way so I can hear what's on those cassette tapes. And he had a moment because he did it. He did it. I don't know if you're familiar with the Twilight Zone, and it's called this long distance call. Well, him listening to my mother again on those tapes, it reminded me of that. And I remember he called me at work and he was like, Ma, listen to this. And he put it on, and the voice I heard, it was my mother, but it was not familiar anymore. It wasn't familiar because I hadn't heard that voice, and in 25 years, I had not heard that voice. So what I heard, I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone on that phone call called the long distance call, and I dropped the phone because I was in shock, complete shock at a voice I couldn't remember. I would dream about her, and the voice in the dream was nothing compared to what I heard. So leave your children, your family, your voice so they can revert back to it, and listen to you. And with that, I will be back with another episode of The Resilience of Black Women Confronting Breast Cancer next Friday. So stay tuned as we dig in to our breast cancer journeys. Have a good night.